Hello and welcome to a brand new Unsourced Wall review. It's been a while, but this seemed to be a pretty special occasion because finally, after like 20 years, we have the brand new, like long awaited, long promised big game number one, or as people have been calling it, and I don't think it's a spoiler anymore. There's a big press release about it. Wanted 2, the sequel to Wanted. It's finally here. It's been, uh, again, like I said, promised for ages. I think that this is something that Mark Millar has been um, talking about, hyping up ever since that initial slate of like his original creator-owned comics was being released. Unfunnies, American Jesus, Wanted, and he was always like, this is gonna be something. It's gonna be a big thing. We're seeing all these hints here and there. This line is reference to that character. This character talks about this event, and it's all very vague, but it's all leading to something big. And we finally have it, big game number one. And I have to say, just to get it out of the way, I enjoyed this issue. I mean, was it worth the wait? Who's to say, honestly, if it's worth the wait? I guess me, because I'm doing this review about it. And as someone who I think is, at least among my peer group, one of the more, let's say, easy and soft on Miller about this kind of thing, I had it has a lot of the hallmarks of stuff that I understand why people don't really enjoy or don't really feel satisfied in Miller comics, but I myself um, feel he excels at. Now I'm just gonna say it. I didn't really enjoy Wanted or a lot of these comics recently that he's been doing. I think that stuff like American Jesus was really really personal and intimate for him, especially with his thoughts and views on religion. I thought that was something that had a lot of heart to it, had a lot of at least personal intent and emotion imbued into it. And of course, I think that the Jupiter saga, Jupiter's Legacy, Jupiter's Circle, Jupiter's Requiem, which we hopefully, fingers crossed, see the finale to sometime this year. Those have been fantastic. But then you have like a lot of cast off comics like Chrononauts and Huck and the TV shows for Jupiter's Legacy and Super Crooks Anime. I thought was like a big misstep and misfire. And I think a lot of the movies as well, which he's had less control over. Um, I think they just missed the mark on what makes these properties or what makes these comics like enjoyable, entertaining to read with, to start with at all. Um, and if Wanted, the original comic, I wanted to like. I think it's got such a great concept, a great conceit, and the movie is just like it's terrible. I think it's got a lot of promise going for it, but what makes the original series, the original Wanted comic, and despite all of its flaws, and it has many flaws, and if anyone wants to talk about it, they know where to find me to talk about it. Um, what makes that so just a fun read or a fun idea to think about is that it's what if the Legion of Doom won? What if they won in the real reality, and now everything's been shifted. Superheroes no longer exist, but the Legion of Doom is able to work behind the scenes and do all this maniac stuff, and there's no one to stop them, there's no one to check them. It's such a mean spirited story, and I feel like it that's what it needs to be, and that's what it needed to be, but it's mean spirited in ways that are very lackluster and doesn't really take advantage of the like promise of that idea, the appeal of that idea. Um, and yeah, I know the movie makes like throws away the baby with the bathwater and trying to clear it up because there's a lot of that book that I don't think has aged well and never aged well. Like it wasn't particularly that satisfying back then. And I think the movie's attempts to really sort of sand away a lot of that edge from it made it very generic, made it very disposable, and it I think hurt a lot of what made it interesting and relatable. And by relatable I mean that everyone understands superheroes, right? Especially now, people understand superheroes, they understand supervillains. So the idea that like, hey, what if like the Joker and Lex Luthor and all those characters won, and people forgot that Superman and all those characters, Batman, Wonder Woman, they all if they thought they all existed, like that's such a fun concept. That's easily understandable concept. And then you have the Wanted movie that is like, okay, but what if instead warrior Buddhist monks that worship a, like a loom, and they assassinate for the greater good? Like, what are we even doing here? Like, what is that even about? And so, big game, the sequel. Like, how do you follow that up? Because especially so much time later, and I have to say it comes off better than I expected because of, like I've said, there's lots of cast off series now that I really don't really couldn't care less about in the Millarverse, but also like to, what is a sequel to Wanted anyway, and the actual big game issue number one pulls it off in a way that I don't want to say feels elegant, but it feels concise in a very strategic manner. Um, and I think it also is because this is where Miller, is one of his things that he's good at. He's good at very small character beats that work in the moment. Something about his structure of writing is that I'm not going to say he writes for the trade, but he definitely backloads a lot of the intensity in his series. Like it's always like the last one or two issues of any of his miniseries that you really see like, oh, we're really going to take advantage of this, and it's like the first half, the first two thirds of those miniseries where it's just like a lot of stalling, but they're punctuated by these very nice little character moments or character dialogues or character little interactions, nice dynamics. And Big Gainer One is just those dynamics. And it's because it has to cover the spread and the width of all these other series. So it's like a montage. It is a montage of an issue because he has to like, hit like most of these in one go, but because it's hitting them in one go, it allows like the little centerpiece of these montages to like really stand out. Like you have, um, and again, being spoiler free as possible, you have Duke McQueen from Starlight, one of my favorite Miller comics ever made. I love Flash Gordon, and I love a Flash Gordon homage, pastiche, ripoff, what have you. And it's a fun little moment. And you have fucking Kick-Ass. You have Dave Lazuski. You have him. He's back. And again, it's just 2 pages, and they all get like 1 or 2 pages. I think the most someone gets that isn't obviously going to be a main character, 3 pages. Um, they all get those pages to, like shine, and I think that they make the most of it each time. And I don't think anyone feels wasted in that way. However, however, um, it does make you wonder, like, okay, this is going to be just a mini series, right? So we're like now 20% through. Like, how do you make the best use of this universe? Like, how much are you really going to take advantage of, and in what way? And I feel like the big conceit, which is a nice conceit. I don't want to spoil it, but it's the big conceit of this series, which you could probably guess from the name Big Game. Like it's very forefront about it. And I guess a good title, good cheeky title. I get a big laugh out of Big Game overall now. But like I feel like this is gonna be a lot of tying of loose threads, the big conceit, it feels like it's just there to, let's say, bring order to like this entire universe, because it has been pretty disparate. You have had series that have gone from like different publishers, from Icon at Marvel to Image to now Netflix is doing a lot of this stuff in house now. And how do you keep that orderly? How do you keep that from being chaotic? And as my fear here is that it's going to be a lot of cleaning things up, rather than um, making this a very exciting or very kind of self-fulfilling, self-actualized comic. But who knows? In terms of being a Wanted sequel, I do love that they aren't shying away from it at all. At least in terms of what made Wanted memorable, which was that concept. Um, but other than that, it feels like you could go into this without reading Wanted at all. Now they do a really fun recap and it was nice to see some familiar faces for Wanted, like in the flesh, as it were. But it's not something that I think is necessary. And they gave a whole checklist, but right now, I feel like through the eyes of a new reader, it's nice to see the Easter eggs, but it's also a good starting point for a lot of these characters. And one of them, of course, is uh, the guy from Prodigy. Now, Prodigy, which is one of, I think, one of the more better received new Millar works that have been released since he made a deal at Netflix. I think it's got like two different series now. And hey, I will used to be a Prodigy denier, but I really enjoyed like the back half of the original miniseries and then the sequel Prodigy miniseries. And that character, Edison Crane, fits so fantastically well into like the whole Wanted over like the way they slide him in to like this overarching plot, if you want to call it that, that's been brewing. Uh, it feels so natural. Like it's like, oh, of course, this is what that character would be used for, and the way they use him to like check off a couple of other references to other comics, like, oh no, this is definitely in that wheelhouse. So again, it's a way that feels natural. It doesn't feel forced, and hopefully it continues that moving ahead because now we've already gotten hints and confirmations that we're going to see other titles crossover as well into this, like Nightclub, which is about vampires, and the Magic Order series, which is of course about wizards and magic. So, like, how much of that do you want to parlay into this? Because I like there's so much of a breadth of like genre and tone and like I don't want to say power scaling, but a lot of that going on that at what point does it become unwieldy and just a huge cluster bomb, at what point there? But overall, I gotta say, I love the little set pieces. I think that Pepe Larraz is doing a fantastic job of capturing, well, not the look of the original Wanted series, but he's got like a very grungy, I don't want to say grungy, but a very nice sort of um, what's his name? I don't want to get his name wrong. One moment. Like pseudo Tommy Lee Edwards style that really sort of um I think fits because I think that a lot of Miller's work, especially with regards to like his overarching idea from Wanted, is rooted in like Marvel 1985, which was about like superheroes crossing over into the real world. So that whole sort of juxtaposition has kind of always been at at the crossroads of everything, the crossroads of everything, and it feels like a natural fit. I think that a lot of the character styles and a lot of the characters themselves they work in this sort of both cartoony but also really kind of grounded art style that Pepper Lars is doing, and then the coloring really helps. So they seem very over the top, very outrageous, but not in a way that distracts or feels disjointed. And so it doesn't feel awkward to see like Wesley Giblin. It doesn't feel awkward or anything to see Wesley Gibbons um, with Nemesis, or Nemesis with the guy from Starlight, Dave McQueen, or Edison Crane, or Dave Lazuski, or a bunch of other characters, like even the ones from like the new Ambassadors miniseries, which I didn't like, but I want to see here. So again, it's not like a depthy issue so far. It's not something that I feel um, has a lot of weight to it, but it is a good reintroduction or, introduction to this entire idea. And, hopefully the series, as such, 5 issues, it's five. So again, we're like, where we are, honestly, 20% of the way done, pays this off, is able to really sort of make a giant benchmark stand, and that we don't just have to wait until like issue 4 for things to really start to get moving. I mean, let's hit the ground running. And this isn't really hitting the ground running. It's like the score. This is a the score issue. So overall, I'd give it like a 4, like 3.5 stars out of 5, or one thumb up, one thumb middle. I enjoyed it. I can see potential of it, um, and I really do like the idea of a lot of this, but uh, it definitely just depends on where it goes from here. It's too early to call, but you know what? If this ends up becoming, or this ends up really like making that much of a mark on the Millerverse as has been promised, then you know what? I'm with it. I want to see Kick-Ass fight Nemesis. I want to see what the Legion of Doom does. And there's another character here, a surprise character that that I don't know where they fit in, because we know all about like Jupiter's Legacy and the Jupiter Circle series, and where does this character come from, and who are they, and where do they fit in? It's exciting. It's intriguing. It's clear what they're meant to be, or who they're meant to be. And that's going to be like my big hook with this series so far. That's what got me the most interested. So again, one thumb up, one thumb middle. I had a good time, but I hope you pick it up and see for yourself. And let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you watch or read Wanted or any of these other series, and have you been like anticipating the huge crossover event um, that he's been hinting at since like the early 2000s? And yeah, what do you think? And let me know your thoughts below. And have a great time. See you again next time. And thank you so much.